But what I saw was the pride of a father smiling on the bravery of a son. And it touched my heart. And I thought to myself, you know what? Sometimes bravery looks like a shipwreck. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Living Life in Tune. I'm your host, Adam Lee. This is the podcast where I talk about living life in tune, all the things that I think need to stay in tune in our lives, like faith, purpose, leadership, personal growth, manhood, all those things that we constantly have to keep in tune. Well, I want to share a little bit with you today. I was blessed with the opportunity to go to Tanzania, Africa last week. I'm home. I'm recovering from the travels, but I had a very, very rich and wonderful experience in Tanzania, Africa. I went with Compassion International Ministries, and I've told lots of people this already since I've gotten back, but I've never been more impressed with an organization, and I've never been more impressed with the gospel of Christ going into the world. Compassion International is quite amazing in what they're able to accomplish. Just in the area that I was in Tanzania, the Compassion had over 330 what they call centers. And so they're just doing great work all over the world. Lots of you sponsor kids and from Compassion all over the world. And I have a newfound respect for all of us who sponsor kids through Compassion. It is making a huge difference. I got to see that firsthand with my own eyes, and I'm blessed to be able to report that today. So I want to share just two things that I saw when I was over in Africa, and this is my personal testimony from the trip. I know every person who travels or goes on missions trips, if you've ever been on one, you know what it's like to come home and just have a testimony because God does something in your life. Your heart is full. Maybe you've seen poverty at a real level, and you're just wrecked by that reality. And everybody who's been on a trip like this, or a missions trip in general, knows what it's like to come home with a full heart and just a newfound sense of purpose and all that. So this is what I saw, two things when I was over there. I wanted to share that with you for this podcast episode. In the future, I am going to dedicate an entire episode to Compassion International, and I hope to be interviewing one of the pastors that I met on the trip, and we're going to have a very, very informative discussion on Compassion, and I'm hoping to be able to do that very soon. I'm excited about that opportunity as well. So, living life in tune, based off of what I saw in Tanzania, Africa last week. The first part of 2023 is the first thing is this. I want to say that our gifts matter. The gifts that God has given us. I want to ask you this question. Do you know what your God-given gifts are? Do you know that? Do you know that God has given you gifts to use in this world to accomplish things that He has called you to do? He has not only called you to do things and me to do things, He has gifted us and made us capable to do what He's called us to do. And He has given each of us a gift. And I want to know today, do you know your God-given gift? This is something that we have to keep in tune, our gifts. I was blessed by God with musical gifts. So I can pick up an instrument, and within a couple of minutes, I am able to play it and make some sound out of it that's pleasing to the ear. People always ask me how long it took me to learn how to play the guitar, and I always respond with 45 minutes. I had somebody teach me as a teenager for about a half an hour about how to play Last Kiss by Pearl Jam, 4 chords on the acoustic guitar. And after about a half an hour and 15 minutes on my own, I was playing that song. And ever since, just been naturally gifted towards that music. And here's what I know. All of us are gifted towards something naturally. God has given it to us. We have to keep it in tune. So our Pastor Chris Jones from Hope Community Church in Hedgesville, West Virginia, something that he says to our staff and our church often is that our gifts make a way for us. I'm quoting Pastor Chris now. Our gifts make a way for us. And just a real quick shameless plug, if you're not already subscribed to the Hope Community Church podcast on Apple Podcasts or YouTube, you're going to want to check that out. Amazing messages. We're in a dream series right now, and it's good stuff for anyone who is wanting to dream big dreams in your life. This content has been so helpful to anyone wanting to dream. So that's a quick shameless plug there. Check out Hope Community Church podcast. And our gifts make a way for us. Our gifts make a way for us. I saw that firsthand in Tanzania, Africa last week. We were at a compassion center, and we did a home visit where we were able to see a child's home environment. And we came back to the compassion center for lunch. And as we entered into the building, which is a church building, for lunch, our team went over to stand in the lunch line, and I was drawn naturally to a boy playing the electric guitar. I could hear it as soon as I walked in, and I kind of just made my way over, and I gave him the old air guitar, like, yeah, that's cool. And instantly, as soon as we made eye contact, he's taking the guitar off, he's handing it to me as if, here, play this. And I just took the guitar from him. I started playing a blues riff that I had learned a couple years ago, and just was playing the guitar. And for a brief time, the boy was trying to say something to me in Swahili, and I couldn't make out what he was saying. It sounded something like "Kizu playin', Kizu playin', Kizu playin'." And I could not understand for the life of me what he was trying to say. And as soon as he realized that we were not going to be able to connect through language, he scooted over from his guitar station and he went over to the drums and began to play a drum beat to the guitar riff that I was playing. And then for the next 5 minutes, it was him and I jamming. I'm on the guitar, he's on the drums, and we are just having a good old-fashioned jam session. Here's what I know. There was absolutely no way him and I were going to connect through language. I don't speak Swahili, he didn't speak English. But for those 5 minutes when he was using his gifts and I was using my gifts, we were connecting. We were absolutely connected. I'm telling you, there's probably not a more vivid picture of heaven where two completely different people are connecting and jamming and using our gifts. It was just really neat that what I hear all the time, our gifts make a way for us. Actually, that is true. I flew halfway across the world with absolutely no ability to connect with language. And here in a small church in Tanzania, Africa, I am connecting with my gift that made a way for me, and he is connecting with his gift that made a way for him, and we were just two guys jamming out. Our gifts make a way for us. I want to ask you this. Have you laid your gift down? Has God given you something that you're just naturally good at? It makes everybody else in your life wonder, how do you do that? I wish I could do that. The truth is that every one of us have one of those gifts from God. I want to know this. Have you laid your gift down? I was convicted at the beginning of the year, actually through a conversation with my wife, that I had laid my musical gifts down, that I had just gotten into the routine of not using my musical gifts. At the beginning of the year, I made a massive effort to pick that gift back up and to be used by God in my gift of music. And one thing led to another, and I'm in Tanzania, Africa, playing music, connecting with somebody, my gift making a way for me. It's unbelievable what God will use your gift, the places he'll take you, the people he will allow you to connect with because of your gift, the kingdom impact that your gift can have on yourself and others, your family, your relationships. Your gift makes a difference. It makes a way for you. You've got to keep your gift in tune. If you've set it down today, I encourage you to go home and pick it back up. Pick up your gift. Some of us are gifted with all different types of things. Mine is music. Yours can be carpentry, automotive skills, welding. Your gift could be communication. You have a unique ability to say things at the right time, in the right setting, in the right way. Some of y'all's gifts is to just get work done quickly. You're tenacious. Your ability to get tasks completed faster than everybody else, better than everybody else. It is your God-given gift. I just want to encourage you, what have you set down? What gifts have you set down today? And I want to encourage you to go pick those gifts back up. Your gifts will make a way for you. So that was my first testimony about jamming with a boy in Africa. My second testimony of my trip in something that I saw personally that impacted me deeply is this. So at another center, one of the next days that we were able to visit another compassion center, they were able to do testimonials of kids that have gone through the Compassion International program, from babies to children to students to young adults, and then graduated and entered into the real world, competent adults who were able to be self-sufficient in the workplace and take care of themselves, and who have chosen to use their gifts to pour back into the Compassion Center. So I got to see people using their gifts and telling stories about their gifts, how God used them. This was really neat. So we had about 3 or 4 people come up, and with the translator, they shared their testimony, how their life was transformed in the program, how they were rescued from poverty, how their circumstances were very difficult before Compassion, and how Compassion fed them and gave them a place and took care of them and allowed them to grow up, taught them skills, and how Compassion transformed their life, and how now one of them was a graphic designer. Can you believe that? One of them was a graphic designer, and he was showing me pictures on his phone after this ceremony of his graphic design and the opportunities that God is giving him when he's using his gifts that God gave him. This is a boy that came to the center. Well, what spoke to me the most was the time came for a young man to give his testimony. And I want you to remember that the prior testimonies were given in Swahili, and there was a translator translating it for us Americans who speak English. And there were great testimonies. When this young man stepped up to give his testimony, he began to give his testimony in English. And a little bit of a side note here. The pastor of this church, all the way in Tanzania, was a 73-year-old man who had been at that place and had seen all these children raised from babies, grow up, graduate, and become successful in the program. He had seen generations of Compassion International at work. The way that it is structured is that the people on the stage giving their testimonies were in the center of the stage, and the pastor and the church elders were sitting off to the side of the stage, and they would sit in reverence with their mouths closed, their eyes locked on the presenter, and not a lot of facial expressions. I think in that culture, it was out of honor and reverence to be still and listen. And throughout all the testimonies, that was this man's posture, this 73-year-old pastor. That was his posture. When this boy got up and started to give his testimony in English, a couple things happened. Number one, he started to fall apart. He was not able to communicate in English very well. It was as if, almost from my perspective, watching a plane crash or watching a sinking ship. His English was broken. He was very nervous. You could see it all over his posture, and his words were not coming together. He was not communicating in English. And after about 45 seconds to a minute, he motions for the translator to come help him. The translator comes and helps him, and he's able to communicate in his native language, and then it took a turn, and he was able to give his testimony with his translator helping him. It was a very, very good testimony. I learned that he was a graduate of Compassion International, and he wanted to use his God-given gift of communication to make a difference in this world. He believed God gave him a gift of communication. And here's what I want to say. Here's what I saw that was uniquely special to me. Like I said, he stood up and the boy tried to introduce, he tried to give his talk in English, and he failed after a while. But I want to say this, the entire time that he was giving his presentation in English, I happened to glance over at the pastor from that church, the 73-year-old man. And for those 45 seconds that this young man was giving English a try, this 73-year-old man was smiling ear to ear, beaming. And I could tell just by looking at him how proud he was of this young man to make this attempt. See, you have to understand something. We were visiting this church. It was an organized, structured event through Compassion International, and there was 24 American pastors sitting in the room. This had to be, for these people, one of the most intimidating times of their life to stand up and to give a presentation in front of us. And I think that it took tremendous bravery for this young man to try to address us in English. And it was evident that this pastor was smiling on this boy and in pride. I could see he was proud of him for trying to use his gifts, trying to address us and communicate to us in English. Now, some might say, well, that was embarrassing. He fell apart. He needed his translator to come up and help him. But what I saw was the pride of a father smiling on the bravery of a son. And it touched my heart. And I thought to myself, you know what? Sometimes bravery looks like a shipwreck. Sometimes bravery looks like a crash, looks like failure. But this boy, here he was, a graduate of the program. He knows he's got a gift on his life from God to communicate and make a difference. And he, in the midst of a very intimidating environment, stood up and tried something. He swung for the fences. He tried to speak in English. And that is what bravery looks like. It looks like trying something new. It looks like stepping out of your comfort zone. It looks like learning a new language because God's given you the ability to communicate. So, all that to say, our gifts make a way for us, and our gifts take bravery to execute. I want to encourage you today, pick up that gift that you've set down and be brave. Use that gift in your life. No matter what it looks like, it might look like failing. It might look like a shipwreck, but I want to promise you something. Your Father in heaven who gave you that gift, in those moments where you're using it, where you're trying it, He is smiling down on you from heaven with pride. His child using His gift. So I want to encourage you with that today. Just a real quick scripture from Paul as he's writing to Timothy. It takes bravery to use your gift. He says this in 2 Timothy 1:6-7. For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of hands. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. God wants you to use that gift. He wants you to pick up that gift you've put down. He wants you to exercise bravery no matter what it looks like. And he wants to fan that gift into flame and use your life to make a great impact on the lives of others. So that's all I have today. Living life in tune, keeping that gift in tune. I hope that these testimonies have inspired you. When I saw that pastor smiling on that boy and I saw his bravery, God told me that we need to be more mindful of our gifts and we need to use them with courage. The only other thing that I got from that is that when that translator did step up and help him recover, it reminded me that we're all in this together. That even when we step out in bravery and it looks like a train wreck, God has given us the body of Christ to support us, to stand up with us, to help us translate our gift to this world. And as soon as that translator helped him out, he got back on his feet, he got his bearings, and he gave his testimony, and it was wonderful. So along with your gifts, remember that God has given us people to help us communicate it, to help us translate it, to help us make sense of it, and we're all in this together. Well, that's it for episode 5 of Living Life in Tune. I want to encourage you to keep your gifts in tune, and I want to remind you of this. Your life matters, so keep it in tune.